What's up everybody, Brian Tong here, and this is my review of the new iPhone 15 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max, the flagship phones for Apple's lineup. And we're gonna cover a whole lot here and do some comparisons with the earlier iPhones to just try and see at what point does it really make sense for you to upgrade. Because believe it or not, the majority of people do not upgrade their phone every year. So let's start off with the first thing that you see, and that's obviously the design. I wouldn't go as far as saying that it's an all new design, but it's absolutely a refined one. You'll instantly feel that it's lighter in weight for both the 15 Pro and the 15 Pro Max, lighter by 19 grams with their 6.1 inch and 6.7 inch displays. It's lighter than before, mostly in part to this new brushed metal grade 5 titanium frame, and you really feel it. Now its contoured edges feel so much more comfortable in hand. I know it sounds like a minor detail, but it makes a difference. And then the iPhone itself is actually smaller. That's thanks to the new display technology that helped make the bezels even thinner, and in turn then help make the body slightly narrower while keeping the same screen size. And all of this, right, contributes to an iPhone that just feels great in hand. Now Apple sent me this natural titanium 15 Pro Max, which is easily my favorite of the bunch because, you know, I like it raw. But they also sent me the only Pro model in the collection with any color right now, with this blue titanium 15 Pro. Now these are both review units that I'm gonna get right back to them. Now this also comes in black titanium and white titanium. Very safe colors here from Apple, and too safe if you ask me. But even if you add all of these design elements together that I talked about, you end up, you know, putting a case on your phone, and I know a lot of you do. This phone is going to feel exactly like every other one as far back as the iPhone 12 Pro. Like no one is going to even notice, and no one did when I was just freely walking around shooting my video for it with this titanium one. So if you're the type that rocks a naked phone with no case, I think you're going to love how this feels. So I'm going to give those of you a moment, right, that are still hung up on the looks, to just get over the fact that it looks very similar, but it absolutely feels different. Okay, now let's get to the features here, and under the hood, clearly we've got to talk about it. USB-C is at the top of the list because it's the biggest change for Apple, and it happened because the European Union, they made it happen, right? This is a universal standard that's been around since 2014, and Apple would have kept Lightning around as long as they could. They even said it, but it's gone now, and we'll now only really need maybe a couple of cables that charge everything instead of 3 or 4 or more. Now Apple's first implementation is, I would say it's a little vanilla out of the gate for the 15 Pro lineup with USB-C. It still has fast charging, and it's capable of that if you purchase a 20-watt power adapter that is sold separately to take advantage of that. And then you'll go from 0 to a 50% charge in 30 minutes with fast charging. That's if your battery dies. And to give you an idea about the competition, right, Xiaomi has what they call hypercharging with 120 watts that can charge their 11T Pro phone to 100% in 17 minutes. Then they also did this 300-watt charging demo for its Note 12 Pro Plus that hit 1 to 100% battery in under 5 minutes. So I'm just saying Apple doesn't have to be at that level, and there are battery health advantages to not going to that far an end, but they just have to get at least a little more competitive here. Now the 15 Pro lineup increases data transfer speeds to 10 gigabits per second thanks to USB-C, which is 20 times faster than the 14 Pro. And that's gonna help people like me who are recording a lot of video content, and we got big files on my phone. Creative professionals, though, can also use it to transfer photos with Capture One in a studio type setup, and then videos can be saved directly to an external drive. That's pretty impressive. Apple has, you know, really pushed this to be a pro level tool this year, right? More than any other year. And transferring via hardware cable, this is a welcome addition, but you know, who wouldn't be surprised to see them unlock the full bandwidth of Thunderbolt USB-C with up to 40 gigabits per second in a future iPhone, like maybe next year. It just feels like they're easing us into this and starting things off slowly, but if you've been part of the Apple ecosystem, hey,
this is the way.
This is the way.
Now USB-C was an inevitability for me, so I'm not shocked, I'm not surprised, I'm not jumping out of my seat about this. It's here, and it arguably should have been here a long time ago, but hey, it's finally here. Now the next new feature, the action button. Ooh, who likes that? I mean, I have some mixed feelings about this. I love the idea, I love the features, but it needs to do more. And Apple has now made the silent mute switch that you're used to available in Control Center, but that requires really more steps to get to it. And then you have to look at your screen to use it and tap it. So it's an option that, again, is in software as well, but you can customize the action button between 9 different apps right now. I like leaving it to a mute switch. You know, you could also launch voice memos. I like jumping it directly into camera. You just do a long press, a single long press, or even create your own shortcuts. Once you assign, though, the action button to something other than a mute switch, it becomes used for that one function. So that makes sense. And although it's customizable, you do also arguably lose a little functionality. So I just need them to do more than a single long press. I'd like to see a double press, a triple press, and just allow for multiple customizable apps instead of just one. That's the type of action button that I want. I hope they will, and they're just, easing us users into getting used to the idea of it, but it also feels like it's being held back a little right now. Again, I love the action button, but I just need it to do more. Okay, let's talk about arguably the most important thing on a phone, the camera, right? And we know our phones are our cameras and our cameras are our phones. It's been that way for a while. The camera system on this phone is great, and I call this system because on the 15 Pro Max, the larger one, it essentially switches between 7 different focal lengths to give you a whole lot of versatility for composing shots. And the biggest difference on the Pro Max is an all-new design for its telephoto lens that reflects light rays 4 times inside a glass structure. They call it a tetra prism design to finally give the iPhone a more respectable 5 times optical zoom, and also just make it difficult to say 5 times really fast. Like, seriously, just try it. Tetra, I can't even say it once. Tetra. Stop it. Okay, now this is gonna open up a whole lot more versatility for your iPhone if you have the 15 Pro Max. It's a nice step forward, but also, let's look at the industry. Samsung's Galaxy Ultra series has had a 10x optical zoom on its flagship phone for 3 years now. Apple users who do live in the ecosystem bubble, it's gonna feel like Christmas, and it is great for getting closer to subjects at a concert or sporting event or new shot compositions. I mean, I did enjoy it a lot. You'll also be able to go up to a 25 times digital zoom with the 15 Pro Max, and then the 15 Pro stays at a 15 times digital zoom. There's also a lot to talk about with these cameras, but I absolutely love how it can auto detect a person, a dog, or a cat, and then capture that depth data. So you can play with the portrait mode effect later on. Just take a picture, right? And it detects that face. You see the little letter F in the corner, and that tells you that it's saving all that depth information. Even jumping into the edit mode after taking a shot and changing the focus between 2 subjects like my baddie wife, Shauna, and then the big voodoo donut guy in the back. It is seamless, and the separation is done so well. From what I can tell, I feel like Apple's portrait separation has even improved as well. It was already one of the best around, so this is a great creative tool, and Apple's new portrait mode functionality just has leveled up. Now, there's also a lot of other things going on here, but as a content creator who used the iPhone entirely for all the outdoor shots in this video that you see, it has really become a tool that is part of my creative workflow. And you can now shoot ProRes video at up to 4K at 60 frames per second from your iPhone, and also log encoding for professional color grading. This is a first on a smartphone, so they are really backing up that Pro name now, because I was one of those people that used to always question that in the past. What really makes this phone a Pro phone? But you know what? I won't have to anymore. It is legitimately Pro. And then let's add on spatial video that will be coming later this year to capture content specifically for the Vision Pro, coming early next year. Apple's not saying much right now, but consuming unique and immersive content, this is going to be its killer app, and it makes the iPhone 15 Pro just even more intriguing if you think that you're going to drop $3,499 minimum on the Apple Vision Pro. Okay, now let's look at a few photos here, because we're talking about the camera, just to give you an idea of just how things have changed. And I'll tell you right now, it is crazy how good that phone cameras have become over the past several years. This comparison reminded me of that. So I have just a few examples, and these are all straight from the camera with no corrections, no edits. We're gonna start with a portrait pic, and here's Shauna, and these are already very, very good looking shots. I would say that I can see how the 11 Pro doesn't have the same amount of detail or maybe nuance with colors and shadows here, but we all have our preferences. I do think that the 15 Pro probably captures it the best here. I think the 13 Pro does add a nice, fresher, subtle brightness, but the day was really overcast and a little gloomy and looked more like the 15 Pro and the 14 Pro results. Okay, now let's take a look at this sneaker shot of my Nike Basketball Freak 5s from my friend Giannis. Hi, Giannis. Now, is there really anything that screams this is a bad camera on any of these? Honestly, again, this is all very close. If you zoom in, and look at like the pixel details, I'd lean towards obviously the 15 Pro and the 14 Pro, but the 15 Pro looks really nice. And I'm just trying to illustrate how good these cameras generally are. Then this final pick at least reveals some of the differences here over time, and specifically with handling low light situations. Here's another portrait of Shauna, this time at night in a darker area after Shauna was helping me for like 6+ hours that day. See how happy she is? Now this is all straight from the camera, and there will always be, subtle differences, but in this situation, I'm taking the 15 Pro as my favorite one of the bunch, and when zoomed in, it was also the sharpest, capturing the most detail. But you can now see a big difference with low light performance from the 11 Pro to the 15, and hopefully on this screen that you're watching this video, it just really emphasizes that the newer cameras have really been able to get a whole lot better with low light performance, specifically over the past few years. So that's just a sample of camera performance, but I'm gonna be doing an even more in-depth comparison video later on after I get all these reviews done. So you can always color correct. We know you can tweak pictures, but what I want to show you is this is what I was able to get straight out of the camera for comparison. And I'm guessing some of you right now still feel like pretty good about the camera that you have in your current iPhone right now after looking at some of these comparisons. I know I would. Okay, a couple more big things that I want to touch on. The new 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max have an all-new ultra wideband chip, and this has even more range for better precision finding. So let's get out of here and test this thing out. All right, what's up everybody? So I'm here at Empire City at Burbank, and I've been hanging out with my friend Shanae, but I want to see how this ultra wideband, this next generation chip really works. So let's take a look down here. And right now she's within range, so I'm gonna hit find. 166 feet, 169 feet ahead. So let's just see where this takes us, okay? Oh, found her, didn't find her, okay. We're getting hot, 107. I see her, she's in my sights. There's Shanae, what's up?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on? What are you looking at? Yeah.
I like this one.
All right, so I found Shanae, but the next thing I want to do is, Apple says this range varies. They didn't give us a specific distance. It could depend on how many people are around the area, what obstructions are there. So I'm going to try and just see how far we can actually go, like how far we can be. And so right now it says that I'm roughly, 66 feet away, but let's try and see how far I can actually go. We're gonna keep on walking, see how far away I can get from her. Oh, this is kind of getting far. I'm sure with buildings in the way. Oh, okay, we stopped around 190, I think. But now it's trying to relocate each other. Now it looks like can't find each other, so I have to move to another location. It's asking me to do that. But it gives you an idea, at least. It did see each other for roughly almost 200 feet. So that's pretty impressive if you're at like a market or a fair. Oh, here we go. Found each other again. We're around 166 away from each other and back within range. This is cool. Oh, it says one, what is it? See, it definitely changed a little bit, but it still will give us, it was jumping between 160 and 112, but now it's saying us back on path. So we're back on track to find Shanae. So that's the new Find My Feature in action using the next gen ultra wideband chip, and it works without any cellular or Wi-Fi connection. Performance will vary. I thought it would actually maybe be even stronger, and maybe it is in ideal conditions, but nearly 200 feet with obstructions, that's still a really pretty good distance. I did not expect this. And again, this tech and this feature only works on the entire iPhone 15 lineup, so that's standard and Pro models. No other products to date have an antenna that has a signal that reaches this far between two devices. We have the new Apple Watch Series 9 and Ultra 2. They include the new ultra wideband chip as well, but their signal just doesn't reach as far. Okay, last but not least, we have to talk about the new A17 Pro chip, which is Apple's new processor based on 3nm technology for even better performance and better power efficiency. This is the first ever in a mobile phone. So Apple, again, leading in the mobile processing space. You get a 10% faster CPU, a neural engine that's twice as fast, and a brand new GPU that's 20% faster and goes beast with hardware accelerated ray tracing. These are really showing us graphics performance for gaming that we are used to seeing on desktop PCs. And this might be in the iPhone 15 Pros today, but I think it's also setting up Apple's future devices. Let's look at bigger screens. They're going to be able to take advantage of games that are using the same uncompressed original PC files from the ecosystem here. And the iPhone is just one of those screens, right? If they bring this tech to products like the iPad Pro or even the Apple TV, which they most likely will eventually, I think that could really open up gaming possibilities even more for them. And Apple is doing everything that they can to lure developers over with their hundreds of millions of users. And now they're giving them all the tools they need. They're just thrown out there and saying, hey, take it or leave it. So we'll see how this plays out in the next couple of years. But if everything breaks their way, this could potentially be another area that is transformational for them compared to where they are now. And I say transformational because we know gaming on the Mac has not been a priority, and we're starting to see that tide shift, and they're just trying to make it even easier. Once we see a AAA title launch on the Mac same time as PC and console, that's going to be a moment, if it happens, where you're going to say, damn, that they did it. So, hey, those are the big features that matter to me. I had the most fun, quite honestly, using the new camera system on the 15 Pro Max. It's incredible. And then you got the weight, the design, and the feel of the new 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max without a case. That was great. I mean, it's tempting me to maybe try this without a case. Battery life and performance, that's going to always vary depending on how you use your phone. But other than my camera day where I was taking photos and videos constantly, the iPhone 15 Pros both have made it all the way through a single day for me when I use them exclusively. Now, the 15 Pro with a 6.1-inch display starts at $999, starting at 128 gigs of storage. The 15 Pro Max with its 6.7-inch display starts at $1199 for 256 gigs of storage, which is the new minimum storage for the 15 Pro Max now. And I know some people were complaining about that by Apple pushing it up, but with all these photos and videos and apps that you're taking, getting just 128 gigs has always seemed too small for me, and it's become even smaller now. So let's talk about it now. Who does the 15 Pro lineup make sense for if you're thinking of upgrading? Well, if you upgrade every year, you're going to always upgrade every year. After seeing just a sliver of the photos, the results that I've collected, if you have a 14 Pro or 13 Pro, I would say, hey, just wait it out another year unless you just can't control yourself. I know there's some of you out there. You can see where there's really some big leaps in low light camera performance from the 12 Pro and 11 Pro to this current camera system. And remember that the cutoff for iOS 17 is the iPhone XS and the SE2. So if you have older phones than that, now also might be a great time to upgrade. I feel like people that are on the 12 Pro, you're really kind of stuck in the middle, and maybe it's your battery life that's not so hot now, or even the idea of having to wait another year for an iPhone that is calling you to upgrade. But if you're completely happy with your iPhone today, don't upgrade. It's that simple. Don't do it. You don't need to. I love the new design and feel. They're bringing back titanium. That has some nostalgia tied to it for me. If I have a case on it, I probably won't feel as much. But now, when I look at this as a tech reviewer, obviously, I'm going to upgrade. And the iPhone 15 Pro Max is still just a little too big for my pants. It's the most advanced iPhone in Apple's lineup right now, but I'm going to stick with the 15 Pro for its size. Now, if I wasn't doing tech for a living and if I currently own the 14 Pro, I would keep that. I would not upgrade. If I was a 13 Pro user, as a consumer, I do love tech. I would probably just do the upgrade, even if the camera results have shown me that my iPhone is still really darn good. But I'd be the first to say that it really feels like an iPhone S-ish type of year. I know they don't use that term anymore. This year isn't a blow your mind, you've got to upgrade type of year. And you know what? That's okay. No one is claiming that, especially if you're someone that upgrades every single year.
This is the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max, and they are filled with improvements, refinements, and some significant additions, like having a USB-C port instead of Lightning. Apple gave the Pro models a minor glow up with a refreshed, lighter build, new cameras including one with a longer zoom, and support for console-tier video games. Now, I've reviewed and tested the iPhone for years, but the iPhone 15 Pro Max is the first time I've been this enamored. And at the time I'm recording this video, I've been using the phones for 3 days, and most of the time was spent with the 15 Pro Max. But if you want to know more about either phone, please check out my full written review on CNET. So, with all that out of the way, let's jump right in. I'm here at the Cal Academy of Sciences, and I thought this would be a great place to spend my first day with the iPhone 15 Pro, 15 Pro Max, test out the cameras, get a feel for the phone, and take a lot of photos of fish and dinosaurs. Let's get to it. Bone is one of the toughest materials known on the face of the earth. But one of the other toughest materials is titanium, and that's what the new iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max are made of. The last 3 generations of Pro models were made out of stainless steel, and they felt very durable, but they also felt very bulky. This still feels as durable. It feels like a solid piece, but it's not as heavy. There might be a lot of people who wouldn't want this big of a phone just to get that camera, and I think it's a good trade-off with the lighter weight. I think this looks really good. I know people were making fun of the fact that the 15 Pro's colors really didn't have colors. This titanium gray, I think Apple calls it natural. It looks slick. This is gonna sound odd, but the volume buttons on these Pro models feel a little different. I don't know if it's the titanium or the redesigned interior. They just got a little more pop to them. It kind of reminds me of the old Pro models. Those volume buttons would be kind of like those Nike Air shoes from the 90s versus like the ones today that have like that crazy foam in it. That's what these are. They're kind of like the foam soles on the sneaker. I was a big fan of the mute silent switch on previous iPhones. In fact, it largely has remained on all iPhone models up to now, unchanged. And this action button, well, it's curious. On the action button, there's a few ways you can tell that it's silence or switch. One is if I tap, I get a little message in the dynamic island. It let me know that I'm in silent mode. And when I switch modes, there's haptic feedback. So I'm gonna switch to ring. There is a staccato vibration. If I do it again, to silent, it's kind of like a wiggled vibration. Now, the more I've used the phones, the more I've discovered the action button's potential. I especially like having it open the camera, which once it's open, lets the action button double as a physical shutter button to take a photo. But the fact that I can use the action button to trigger a shortcut multiplies the possibilities, well, to an extent. I say that because the only way to change what the button does is to go into settings, scroll down to the action button menu, and change it there. Heck, I'd be happy with just even a control center button that's a shortcut into the action button menu. But the action button isn't the biggest change. That would actually be on the interior. Apple said they redesigned the insides of the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max to make them easier to repair. So if the back glass is damaged, it should be faster and more affordable to have it replaced. And with that, let's move on to the cameras because there's a lot to talk about. Apple said that the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max are the equivalent of having 7 camera lenses in your pocket. These photos were taken at the equivalent lens length of 13 millimeters, 24 millimeters, 28 millimeters, 35 millimeters, 48 millimeters, and 120 millimeters. And to switch between 24, 28, and 35, I just tap the 1x magnification button and it changes to 1.2 times magnification, 28 millimeters. If I tap it again, it goes to 1.5 times magnification, an equivalent of 35 millimeters. It's a clever addition to Apple's camera interface, and I like that it doesn't take up any more space because since 2020, the camera app has been getting a little crowded. But let's get to the good stuff and look at some of my favorite photos and videos that I took with the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. So if that wasn't enough to give you an idea just how versatile these cameras are, don't worry, I got you covered. I decided to do a photo shoot with one of my favorite people to see just how different the iPhone 15 Pro's 3x optical zoom is compared to the 15 Pro Max's 5x optical zoom. Let's go start with the iPhone 15 Pro. I'm gonna use the telephoto camera to photograph a bra. This has the same 3x optical zoom that we've seen on previous Pro models. I know I said that weird, but trust me, it works. There we go, great. But what if I want to be farther away from my subject? Well, that's where the iPhone 15 Pro Max comes in, and it's 5x optical zoom. In fact, in this scenario, it allows me to be 3 feet farther away from a bra. So let's take a picture back here and look a little bit forward here. There we go. And thank you, Abrar. One of the other neat features on these phones is now that they have a USB-C port, that port supports USB 3 speeds. So eventually I'll be able to plug these phones into a computer and use software like Capture One for studio capture of live photos. Sadly, it won't be out until later this year. The iPhone 15 Pro Max has a 5x optical zoom camera, and I thought it might be fun to compare it against the Google Pixel 7 Pro, which has a 5x optical zoom camera, and the Galaxy S23 Ultra that has a 3x optical zoom and a 10x optical zoom. Let's see what happens. Now, taking these photos challenged all three phones. We had a cloudy sky and lots of fog, but even with that, the Galaxy S23 Ultra was at a disadvantage. While the Pixel 7 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro Max both have 5x optical zoom, in order for Samsung to match it, I had to set it to 5x digital zoom. And, well, as you can see, the results weren't great. The Pixel fared better, but notice the detail in the trees looks muddy compared to what the iPhone grabbed. Now, none of these photos are great, but the iPhone Snap is the best of the three. But wait, Samsung has something the other phones don't, and that's a 10x optical zoom. It gets much closer, but the quality isn't great. But it does look better than the 15 Pro Max's 10x digital zoom. Also, if you're like me and you're wondering what that building is, it's the University of San Francisco. But at the time, I didn't know that. So I used the iPhone's visual lookup tool to find out. Now, while the iPhone did identify it as a landmark, it couldn't actually tell me what it was. In fact, it shared a photo of the Sayat Tower in Iran. So I hopped on my Pixel, used Google Lens, which gave me the correct answer. Portrait mode now lets you change the focus after the fact. I mean, check out my 90s grunge band style poses with my pal, Beecham. I can change the focus after I've taken the photo from me to him, and this is gonna be a killer feature for parents. Then there's portraits in photo mode, which lets you take a regular photo and change it to a portrait mode pic after the fact with certain subjects. So here's a photo I took of Kit Kat, the bodega cat, in photo mode. I can turn portrait mode on and adjust the aperture to keep his whiskers in focus, and even apply portrait lighting effects. I mean, that's pretty cool. Also, I'm happy to say that the new lens coating on the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max help reduce light source reflections. On the whole, if there is a reflection or lens flare, it's minimal at best and usually just a single point. But in night mode, I did get some strange light streaking when using the 5x telephoto camera on the 15 Pro Max, like in this night mode photo with string lights and this one with a lamp inside a bar. Now, I wonder if it has something to do with the prisms used for the lens. But to be clear, out of the hundreds of photos I've taken with these phones, only a handful had these light streaks. And in terms of video recording, I'm gonna keep this short because this video is already quite beefy. Video recordings look good, and I'm very excited about being able to record in log. And I can see using log for videos like this review that I'm doing, as well as films where you're using multiple cameras from different brands. The log footage looks flat when you record it, but does give you a little more leeway to make the iPhone videos match the color with footage from other cameras that you use. Let's move on from the cameras to the new A17 Pro chip, the brain behind everything you do. And that's best shown off with video games. And I'm not talking about Candy Crush. The 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max support full console games like Resident Evil Village, which I got to test, well, at least the beginning of it. Resident Evil Village looks phenomenal on the 15 Pro Max's screen, especially in terms of lighting and shading. In my time and through my casual gamer's eyes, I was impressed. And it speaks volumes that games like this can come to the iPhone. Last, if the A17 Pro chip is the 15 Pro's brains, then iOS 17 is its soul. The new OS is filled with lots of small quality of life improvements all throughout. Standby mode has won me over. I love being able to have my lock screen show widgets like the time or photos while it charges. The interface is clean and contemporary and breathes new life into the iPhone. I also love making custom stickers from photos and live photos in Messages. It makes communicating with my friends and my family even more expressive and very personal. Autocorrect on the keyboard works so well for me. I'm usually horrible at phone typing, which is shocking because I'm a phone reviewer, but this new autocorrect just gets me, and I don't even curse that much. At the end of the day, I am impressed with the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. I still have more tests to run for performance benchmarks and battery, which will be in my written review. But in terms of battery life so far, the 15 Pro Max has been making it through a day no problem. On one day, it started with a full battery at 7 a.m., and after a heavy day of use, filming videos, taking photos, playing video games, having the screen on at full brightness, it was at 7% at 10 p.m. Also, in terms of USB-C and charging on the phones, the only change is that I now plug in a USB-C cable, which comes with the phone, instead of a lightning cable. I mean, it's largely the same charging speeds as prior iPhones, which might be a little disappointing for some, but in a 30-minute charge test, the iPhone 15 Pro went from 4% to 66% with a 20-watt wall plug, and the 15 Pro Max went from 7% to 56% in the same time with the same plug. Now, there are other features that will come out later to these phones, like spatial video and the Journal app, which I am excited to test. So, should you upgrade? Well, I recommend the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max for anyone coming from a 12 Pro, 12 Pro Max, or older. And if you're trying to decide between the Pro and the Pro Max and that 5x telephoto lens, while it's extremely compelling, if you don't take a lot of zoomed in photos, it might be best to stick with the smaller Pro size.